In an effort to distance himself even more from the person who made him rich and famous, Daniel Radcliffe partners with the Trevor Project to have a roundtable of trans kids who are victims of this ideology to explain their transgenderism and how they've always been trans. This isn't indoctrination at all. We'll also have a little bit of fun today by learning how to speak tweet, and there may be an appearance from a professor friend of mine. He's a little nuts, but we'll see what he has to say. All that and more on Jake's Takeaway. I'm your host, Jake Pritchard. Welcome back to the show. Thanks for tuning in to yet another takeaway. While you're here, please hit the like, subscribe, follow button, whatever you got to do to get notified of my content. Also to get me into that algorithm, it helps me a lot. So please, if you got a moment, give me some numbers. Leave a comment below, hit that like button, subscribe, follow, whatever you got to do. Share me with a friend. Helps a lot. All right, so Daniel Radcliffe, yet again, is trying to distance himself from J.K. Rowling. The easy thing to do. I mean, what actor doesn't disavow someone who comes out against the transgender ideology? Daniel Radcliffe is just one of many, but he partnered apparently with the Trevor Project, which is a known transgender organization that tries to spread this ideology yet further, as if they need any help, by giving trans kids voices and allowing them to a platform in which to spread this filth. Of course, it's not entirely their fault. I don't blame them. They are, in fact, victims of this. But the latest is Daniel Radcliffe getting a roundtable of kids who are confused in a circle and to talk about their feelings and their experiences. Here's some of that.
I learned from, out of the cradle that I am... that I was a boy. I should like blue. I should like sports. I should be manly. I should like superheroes, yeah? And I never associated myself with those things. And we are told that we're not old enough to know this yet. I'm only 11 years old. How do I know I'm a girl? And I need more time to think about this.
But there are also people who do have a slightly condescending but well-meaning attitude of well, people are young and how do we, that is a huge decision.
So we'll come back to a little more of that. I haven't watched the entire thing. It's about 21 minutes, which is a lot more than I can handle of watching these poor kids try to articulate something that they don't fully understand themselves. But she brings up I think, brings up some good points as far as what brought us to this point. Putting aside that it's terrifying that she said, I'm only 11. Oh my gosh, your parents are doing this at 11? Good gracious. Or at least allowing it. And someone else is pushing it on you, otherwise you wouldn't know about it. But he brings up the list of things that, boys typically partake in as growing up. And it's funny how whenever you bring up those points, boys do these things, or men do these things, and girls do these things, or women do these things, the first thing they say is oh, well, not everybody, just because you do a thing doesn't mean you're that thing. Just because you do one thing, it doesn't mean that you're the person who typically does those things. But then as soon as they're describing what they are, the first thing they jump into is, oh yeah, so I might have been a boy, but I liked dresses, so I'm a girl, right? That's the first thing they jump to. She also poses the question, how am I supposed to know what gender I am? Your parents. It's clear they're absent or deluded, because otherwise they would tell him, that he was a boy. The he-she thing is getting actually really confusing. They are getting more and more convincing. Actually, the younger they are, the harder it is to tell, I feel like, because, they just have a young face, and it's especially the boy to girl, I think. The girl to boy is a little easier to tell, but, they just have fairer skin and everything, the build and whatnot. But the skinny little bodies when they're 12, it's just really hard to tell the difference, to be honest with you. But anyways, your parents should be telling you this stuff. That's how you know. You didn't even refute the point that Radcliffe brought up, oh, people are well-intentioned. They say, oh, you're young, and blah, blah. Exactly, you are young. You are still learning. You need someone who knows what they're talking about to tell you what's going on. I mean, that's why you go to school, right? I mean, people always bring up their credentials and they're like, oh, I know more than you because I got such and such degree and I have a PhD and blah, blah, blah. Well, who taught you those things? Someone older than you, someone who has lived longer than you. And I realize the refute to that is, yeah, most of those people now are telling you that transgenderism is a thing. But it's interesting that we don't apply that principle when we're talking about our parents who have been on this earth longer than us, and we don't want to listen to their conceptions of how the world works and how it has worked for thousands of years.
I don't understand why I can't just decide that I'm a girl. If it's a big decision to decide I'm a girl, it's a big decision to decide I'm a boy.
Right.
It's the same thing. There's no age. You don't have to be 18 to decide that, oh, I am who I am.
Did you catch it? She said, to decide who I am. Not what. That's the key here. Who I am. You see, that's a very different question. We're not concerned with who you are. We're concerned with what, in fact, you are. The thing you were born as, the body you're living in, the side of humanity that you are, not who you are. Who you are is confused, a child who has still got some learning to do. Who you are has nothing to do with your gender, your race, your knowledge, anything. Who you are is a doing thing. What you are is an irrefutable, objective fact about what you are. So we're not even on the same playing field here. You might not realize that you just exposed the whole ideology when you said that. And I mean you well. I feel bad for these kids. I don't know how old he is, but not very old, it seems. I would guess 16 max, 15 probably. But the whole game has been exposed just with that statement. Who you are is things you do that are more descriptive of your personality. What you are is entirely different. See, that's what we're hung up on as people on the right and some people on the left too. But a lot of people center and right side of politics, we're asking the what question. What is a woman? Not who is a woman. If you ask who is a woman, everybody says, oh, well, I identify as that. So that's me. I'm a woman. That's a very different question. That's a lot more easy. That's a lot less complex to answer. Not even complex. What is a woman? I mean, it should be simple, but now you ask it and nobody can have a clear-cut answer. We're trying to make everything gray matter, everything hard to answer, when in fact, it's very simple. But when we ask the question, what is a woman? That's what we're on. You're still on the who. We're not talking about the who. We know who you are. You think you're a woman. You think you're a man. But what you actually are is in conflict with that. That's where we're trying to to get a conversation going here. You're wearing this gender as an outfit, a trend. Who knows? You might not even like it down the road. I mean, some of these kids in this very circle, I'm not going to show you the clips for it, but if you did want to see it, it's on YouTube. But some of these kids were saying like, oh yeah, I didn't know trans was a thing. When I was 11, I told my parents I was gay, and then I didn't know trans was a thing until 15 or 16. So then you identified as trans? That's the point though. You didn't know it was a thing, therefore would not have ever been it. If you didn't know gay was a thing, you would have never come out as gay. If you didn't know trans was a thing, you would have never come out as trans. That's why there's more trans people in the world, is because we're pushing this so stinking hard. I mean, it's on YouTube, it's on Netflix kids shows, it's everywhere. It's on every advertisement. I was on an app earlier today and I had drag queen ads pushed on me just to advertise a product. There was men posing as women to sell feminine products. It's all over the place and they're acting like it's normal. That's the only reason that any child would ever think to identify as this stuff is it's constantly pushed on us. Constantly. And they confess themselves, I didn't know it was a thing. And then they identify later on as trans. They don't realize how much that gives the game away. They just don't realize. I've seen the Trevor Project pushed in multiple areas, but mostly actually on my Xbox. Yeah, it's being pushed by Bill Gates and Microsoft and everybody involved. They're constantly pushing me to spend my hard-earned Microsoft Rewards points on donations to things like the Trevor Project and Gamer Girls and all these other trans and gay and other organizations that support causes that I don't care for. So I promptly ignore it. But I noticed this thing on the very front page on my Xbox. And here's a picture of that. Look, I just want to play Halo. I just want to play some Plague Tale. I just want a good story. I believe video games are a good art form, just much like movies. I just want to, escape a little bit. I realize you don't want to escape your problems all the time, but just give me an hour, But you can't. You just have to push this everywhere. It's also just such a flawed premise. It's taking a biblical premise and twisting it. And I mean, I'm sure you've heard it. A lot of people don't even know it's from the Bible, but treat others as yourself comes from the whole love thy neighbor passage. You love thy neighbor as thyself. Sorry for the King James translation. The whole concept, the whole idea of that is to treat someone the way you would want to be treated. Meaning, if you don't like it, there's a good chance the person next to you is not going to like it either, so just maybe don't do that. But that assumes a general acceptance rate for humankind in general. We're graying everything. We're turning everything into a blur. We're making everything a gray matter. Or a gray area. Which makes it all the more complicated to do things like love your neighbor as yourself. Also, in order to do that is you do have to like yourself a little bit in order to care for other people. And transgenderism is formed completely around the idea that you don't love yourself. You don't like where you are. You don't like your body. You don't like your voice. You don't like your gender. So you're just constantly trying to change all of that. And if you're so focused on that and you can't love yourself, then of course you're not going to love anybody else. That's why these people are so enraged all the time, because everything is not their fault. Whatever they blame, I don't know if they'll blame God or the universe or whatever, or their parents. I'm like, not the right body, not the right gender. Nothing's their fault. And that's ultimately where the culture is right now, is we don't take fault for anything. And I've talked about that before. But this problem that we don't like ourselves, so of course we're not going to treat others the way we treat ourselves because we don't treat ourselves right. But on top of that, we have to twist these well-known phrases now because we've just ditched the whole treat others well. Now it's treat others as they want to be treated. Now it's a free-for-all now, because now you're worried about every single person. Oh, what's he going to want? What's she going to want? Is he even a she? Is he even a he? You have to walk on eggshells with every single person in your vicinity. And if you ask me, that sounds like hell. So we're setting these poor kids up for just a mess of trouble. And you think they're worried about what other people think now? It's only going to get exponentially worse. And that's why they're so crushed when they get misgendered, or they call them ma'am or sir, when, pretty hard to hide your gender, sorry to say, it's just the truth. And so you're going to get misgendered and you're going to get very upset about it, and it's just the truth of it. But they don't accept that truth because they're told not to accept that truth, because they're told the entire world around them has to conform to their ideology. It also is a proof against their ideology when the world doesn't automatically accept it. Alright folks, if you've been on Twitter, you might have noticed that Twitter language is very hard to understand, but I'm here to help you out with Learn to Speak Tweet. We're going to dissect a couple tweets just to see what it means. If you want to speak tweet, or if you've never been on Twitter perhaps, here's the basics of how to speak tweet. First up, I got a tweet from Joyce Aileen, if that's how you pronounce her name. It doesn't matter in Twitterland. You'll never have to say it out loud. Federal prosecutor, apparently on the former Obama administration, and associated with MSNBC. She says Donald Trump Jr. has posted a picture of the judge's daughter on Truth Social. What's inferred by this is that Donald Trump Jr., in fact, wished harm upon the daughter of the judge. Now, if you really want to speak tweet, what you want to do with comments like these is to never actually respond to the original tweet. Just say it out there in the open. People will get your point, and you'll get political points. Because if you do show the original tweet, people will know that the offender, in fact, just shared an article that happened to have a picture of the judge, but the entire article was about said person. Don't let them know that. It's even better if you can get one of your constituents to agree with you, blindly, without looking up anything. Alexandria Occasional Cortex has done that. Because nothing says innocent like threatening a judge's family. Translation, I'm a parrot for my favorite people. Right? Well, I don't know about you, but I feel a lot more equipped for the battlefield that is Twitter. You know, you could also be just straightforward and blunt like my professor friend here. And now a moment with Jackson White, author of New York Times best-selling I'm White and I Hate You for It.
All racism must be ended. But if all racism must be ended and all white people are inherently racist, there can be only one logical conclusion. It's quite simple, really. All white people must die. Not me, of course. I must spread the word.
Seeing ideologies to their inevitable end. This has been a moment. That's about all I got for you this week. I hope you have a happy Easter this coming weekend. And if you want to see more content like this, make sure you hit subscribe, make sure you hit follow, like, give me some comments, and you'll generate some numbers into the algorithm of these websites. Also, if you want to see some more of this more fun content, I think it's more fun, makes it more fun for me, frankly. So if you liked what you saw, let me know in the comments, and I'll be sure to make some more of this more lighthearted content. I do think it makes it more fun for me, which makes it more motivating, you know? This has been Jake's Takeaway. I'm your host, Jake Critcher. I'll see you next week.